Have an exact count. The children have been relocated into the school, which is where their families are reunifying with them.
Do we know if the shooter,
other than the weapons, what
was the shooter a student, former student? Was he a former employee? Do we know that?
The question was, do we know if the shooter was a former school employee or a former student? We don't have that information.
Did he leave anything behind other than the weapon? Either like a note?
There's a vehicle. The question was anything left behind? There's a vehicle that we believe that the suspect used that is being searched, and we will be conducting other searches related to this.
And what was that vehicle and where was it parked?
Inside the parking lot here.
There
was some neighbors who said that the door to the church had been barricaded.
Yep.
Is that correct?
So the question was, neighbors had said that the door to the church had been barricaded. The shooter approached on one side of the church building, and on that side, at least two doors, it appears there had been like a 2x4 placed. So not all of the doors around the building, but on the side where the shooter did fire.
And on the outside?
On the outside, yes.
Is there a reason why officers are going?
Were there any explosives that were found?
The question was there any explosives? There were reports of that. There were no explosives or improvised devices that we found. I do believe there was one, I guess you would call it a smoke bomb, like not an explosive, but a sort of a firework that would release smoke.
And which side of the building? North, south?
The side that is closest to us, here, on this side. Yep.
Is there a reason why agents are also at these nearby homes?
I don't have specific information on that I can release.
Was he dead from a gunshot wound, this suspect?
The question was, is he dead from a gunshot wound? The answer is yes. We believe he took his own life in the parking lot.
Was this outside or both inside that he was shooting?
The question was he shooting outside and inside? He was absolutely shooting outside of the building on the side of the church, inside through the windows. It appears he may have gone inside, but I don't believe we've located any casings inside the building. So I'm not certain if he fired also while inside. It appears, if not all, most of the shooting happened outside the building.
Chief, is this shooting related to any other shootings that happened in the last 24
So,
hours?
yeah, Taylor's asking, is this related to any of the other shootings? This does not appear to be related to any other shooting in the city.
Do you know approximately how many rounds were fired?
The question was how many rounds? I would say it's in the dozens. We don't have an exact count. There's a sidewalk on the outside as well as a grassy area, so obviously we are going through and taking our time to process the scene.
Was he firing just one weapon, like the rifle? Or
The question was he firing one weapon? We believe he had fired all three. He had a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol.
Chief, was this individual licensed to conceal and carry? Did he have any background prior?
Were the weapons, was he lawfully carrying the weapons? I don't have that information, and I don't have any information on any significant criminal history either.
was he dressed at all in any tactical type of gear or anything?
It appeared he had some black clothing on, his cargo type pants. I guess you could interpret that as, however you like.
All right,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you for helping us to get the information out today. We have a lot
No more
work
questions?
that needs to be done. We will return back later today to provide more details as they become available, and we'll let you know how you can know about that in the moments to come. Thank you.
How can the public help?
That's it.
Okay, we were just listening to a news conference from Mayor Jacob Fry, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara, and oh my goodness, the information shared was, I think, worse than what we even anticipated here. The headline, Chief O'Hara confirming that there were 17 people injured, 14 of them children, 2 of them in critical condition, and sadly, 2 children were killed in this shooting.
An 8-year-old and a 10-year-old killed while they were sitting in the pews. They were there for a mass. This mass was marking the first week of school. All these kids gathered around, worshiping, and then this gunman approaches from the side of the building, apparently barricades a couple of the doors outside of the building, and then starts shooting this rifle through the windows.
Yeah, shooting through the windows, dozens of shots fired. They don't know exactly how many yet. We're told that the suspect was armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. He was wearing all black. And then that suspect took his own life in the rear of the church. He died of what police believe was a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Brian O'Hara, the police chief, says the calls came in just before 8:30 a.m. about a shooting at a mass. When MPD first responders came in, they came and tried to assist children, some of whom were hiding in the building, as you would imagine. We don't know exactly how many kids were inside the church at the time of this shooting. Dozens. He said it was the school community gathered together, as you said, Jason, to celebrate the beginning of the school year with a mass. And now, simply hours later, this happened just before 8:30 a.m., 2 of those children, an 8 and a 10-year-old, are dead. 14 others are injured, 2 critical, and then there were an additional 3 people injured as well.
Yeah, not too much about the suspect. We don't know too much about the suspect, and we do know he's in his early 20s, no extensive criminal history, left behind a vehicle, and Chief O'Hara said other searches are coming. We don't know if there's any notes or a manifesto or anything like that, but the chief does say more searches are coming. Also, no devices found. The chief did say that there was a smoke bomb or a firework that emitted smoke of some sort, probably something that the shooter was going to use to disorient folks in the building. But the chief also said most of the shooting happened inside of the building. It seems as if he fired most of the shots through the window. At some point may have gone inside, but no evidence that there was a lot of shots fired from inside of the building. Most of what he did was from outside of the building.
Yeah, and MPD still at this point trying to piece this together. This is very early on. As you said, they're conducting multiple searches. There was a car that the shooter used that is left at the scene that police officers are going through right now. At this point, they don't know if the guns he had, again, a rifle, a pistol, and a shotgun, were obtained legally, if he was legally allowed to carry those. But he was an adult with, they said, minimal criminal history, so likely was legally able to carry weapons. Again, you could hear the emotion, I think, in Chief O'Hara's voice. You could see the anger that Mayor Fry experienced as he talked about this shooting, this attack on children in Minneapolis, on a Minneapolis neighborhood, on Minneapolis families. And I think that's how everyone feels here. The mayor called it an act of evil against kids who were literally praying at that point.
You know, you hear in the aftermath of this thoughts and prayers to such and such community. And the mayor flat out said he doesn't want to talk about thoughts and prayers. Those kids were literally in that church praying when all this went down. And he mentioned that these families are forever changed and, quote, we are changed with them.
Asked, of course, for support for the school community, for the families of the wounded and the families of the deceased. There are families out there of an 8 and 10-year-old child right now who have gotten the worst possible news. They sent their kids to school this morning, and now they know that their 8 and 10-year-old are dead by a gunman inside the church.
That they're not coming home. It just, no words. No words. Man. So you just heard there in that press conference, again, just to recap here, this all happened just before 8:30, Minneapolis police getting that call, that gunman standing outside of the church, shooting through the windows, barricading a couple of the doors outside of the church. 17 injured here, 14 of them being children. And as you mentioned, Lauren, 2 children killed, 8 and 10 years old.
Yeah, we are awaiting a news conference from HCMC, who received some of these victims. We also have a statement from Children's Minnesota saying that they have 6 children there that they are treating. And now we are going to go to that news conference, I believe, at the hospital right now.
Here, Christine Hill with Public Relations here at Hennepin Healthcare. I have Dr. Tom Wyatt. He is the chair of emergency medicine here at Hennepin County Medical Center. Dr. Wyatt, he's going to give you an update.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Tom Wyatt. I'm an emergency physician. I'm chair of emergency medicine here at Hennepin Healthcare. I'm here to provide you with a brief update of the care that was delivered here at Hennepin Healthcare related to this tragic event that occurred this morning. We first received a page that we were going to have a mass casualty incident at 8:46 a.m. this morning. That gave us time to mobilize all of our resources and prepare our teams. We are a level 1 trauma center, and we prepare and we train for this. Having said that these incidents are never easy. We've had 2 in the last 24 hours that have occurred, these mass casualty incidents. The one today, we received a total of 11 patients from this incident. 2 of them were adult patients, 9 pediatric patients. 4 of them required the operating room. And up to this point in time, there have been no fatalities related to any of those patients that were brought to our organization. I want to take a moment to tell you how proud I am to work for this organization and the teams that were involved, the resources, again, that were mobilized, our surgical colleagues, our medical medicine colleagues, our amazing nursing staff, our psychologists that help process these events for us, environmental services, all those involved. Hennepin EMS brought in all the critical patients from that scene to our organization, and we were very lucky to have 2 emergency medicine, emergency medical services directors that were on scene and able to provide us with really important information that, again, helped us to prepare for this event. So I don't have any individual or specific information about the patients at this time for you, so that's all I can share. Thank you for being here. Any questions?
You said they were in critical condition?
7 were brought in as critical patients, and at this time, I don't know the updates on what the conditions are of many of them. 4 of them required the operating room, as I said.
There was a baby?
There were, again, 9 of the 11 patients were pediatric ages. I can't remember the exact name, the exact ages. I believe it's 6 all the way up to 14. That's the range.
Can you tell us a little bit about what types of teams you had working this morning, how many people it takes to treat us?
Yeah, you know, whenever that type of a page goes out, again, it really puts into motion a lot of a big response from all of the teams. And so because we're a level 1 trauma center, we have to, mobilize certain types of resources like, operating rooms and the surgical services. We have to have emergency providers and nurses. We have to, mobilize things like the laboratory and the blood bank. So there's a lot of planning, and again, a lot of exercises we do throughout the year to prepare for these events. And unfortunately, we respond to many of them throughout the year.
Can you talk about the injuries at all, or any type of what you're seeing here with some of these patients?
I can't get into specifics, but we are dealing with gunshot wound injuries from apparently a high-velocity weapon. And, gunshot wounds can be very problematic because they can involve multiple body systems. And again, they require a lot of resources to manage. But again, we see a lot of gunshot wounds here at Hennepin Healthcare, and we're among the best in the nation every year at managing penetrating trauma. So we are used to seeing them.
Can you tell us where the status of the 11, are any of them still in surgery?
I don't know the status of that. I can't share that with you at this time.
Was anyone shot more than once?
I can't share that information with you at this time.
Can you confirm the families of some of the victims have made their way here?
Yeah, we've had quite a bit of effort to stand up a reunification center across the street here at our clinical specialty care building. And so to my knowledge, I believe all or almost all of the families and loved ones have been reunited with patients and know their status.
Do you know if anyone is being treated at any other locations?
My understanding was we had a lot of the non-critical patients that went to Children's Hospital, and I believe one went to Masonic Children's Hospital as well. I don't know the status of any of those patients.
Can you speak to the toll it takes on physicians here who have to handle these types of cases of mass casualty cases within hours?
Yeah, it does take a toll. Thank you for asking that question. I think, again, we have psychologists that we have dedicated to our emergency department to help with our providers and our nurses and other workers that manage these types of events. Again, we've had 2 mass casualty events happen in the last 24 hours. I mean, that does take a toll. But we also have to recognize that we are here as a critical resource for our community, and we have to take time to process, the care that we deliver in these situations, and we have to be able to move forward because we are obviously needed. Not to my knowledge.
You said there were 11 total, and 9 of them were pediatrics ages 6 to 14, but 7 were in critical condition. Are all of those that are pediatric, those 6 to 14, are all of those the critical condition, or the ones that are older also in critical condition?
I don't want to misspeak here. I believe that all of the pediatric patients were the ones that were in the critical condition. Yes.
And did I get my numbers right in saying that the numbers
You did.
are?
You did.
Can you give us your specific title one more time, Doctor?
It's Thomas Wyatt, Chair of Emergency Medicine at Hennepin Healthcare.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Check out our newsroom too, because I will be posting the exact information on the patients, their conditions, just those general conditions and the numbers. The Hennepin Healthcare Newsroom. Thanks for coming.
Do you anticipate any other updates?
I'm hoping to give another update later. Just again, general conditions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you just heard there from officials over at HCMC, Dr. Thomas Wyatt, talking about the medical response to all of this. They say they received the page at 8:46 a.m. They say their 11-1 trauma center, they were prepared for it, but it doesn't make it any easier, especially considering the fact that we just had a mass shooting yesterday, less than 24 hours ago, around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, where 6 people were shot. And so they were dealing with that already, and now this call comes in and just adds to the patient load and just adds to what they're dealing with over there. 11 patients right now at HCMC.
Yeah, and he had some details about those 11 patients. 2 of them are adults. 9 are pediatric patients, ages 6 to 14 years old. 7 of those patients, all pediatric, were in critical condition when they were brought in. He does not know what condition they're in now, but they were dealing with gunshot wounds, he said, from a high-velocity weapon. So the injuries that they were dealing with when children and 2 adults were brought to HCMC were gunshot wounds from a high-velocity weapon. We also know 6 others were brought to Children's Minnesota. Those children, he believed, were in non-critical condition.
Okay, so 17 total injured. Out of that 17, 14 being children. So that's the latest from HCMC. Let's get back out to our Lou Ragus. We have him on the phone to react to all this information that we're getting in. And, he's actually live out there. Lou, just your reaction to all this. What are you hearing out there in the field?
Well, I just listened to the same information you did, and I think you guys hit the nail on the head right off the bat when you said that this is as bad or as potentially worse than we were expecting based on the preliminary information. The 17 people shot is close to the 20 that we were initially hearing. Both of the victims who are deceased were children. I earlier had been told that one was a 4th grader, and that aligns with the 10-year-old along with the 8-year-old who are both deceased. I can speak a little bit to they mentioned high velocity weapon, because that mass shooting yesterday that we reported on involved high velocity gun rounds that were fired from an AR style. The ammunition is called .223, which is a common ammunition to fire from a weapon like that. What makes it much worse in a mass shooting situation like this is the damage that those rounds can do to the human body when shot. When I was interviewing this former FBI agent yesterday, I asked him to just compare to me if you were to be hit by a stray bullet from a weapon like that versus, say, a 9mm handgun, which is low velocity. He talked about how from a handgun, those are highly survivable wounds if it doesn't hit a major organ right away, because of how much the round will slow down, even from hitting clothing and stuff like this. But a high velocity weapon, even shooting through a window like that, it causes so much damage to a person if they are hit by it. And it's much harder for the medical workers the surgeons to deal with once those patients are at the hospital. So I felt like it was encouraging news that none of the critical patients who've arrived at HCMC have died, and so far they have all survived, and that's in the early stages of the surgeries and everything that they're going through. That is encouraging news. Out here, I am similar to the spot that Jessica Hart was reporting from earlier. Behind me, you can see the school itself. I'll step off a little bit here so you can see the school itself is closest to us, and the church where the shooting took place is a little bit further back. You can see the steeple back there of the church to give you a little bit of a frame of reference of where this took place. And of course, as you heard from Chief O'Hara, everyone was gathered for that mass, so everyone was in one place. I heard one question at the news conference regarding motive of the shooter, and while, you know, as we think of the word motive, like what would drive somebody to do something like this, that may take time, I guess, to figure out. But one thing is clear is that the intention seemed to be to kill children, because this was a gathering of children all in one place. And as Chief O'Hara said, there were steps taken to block exits that people could have escaped from when the gunshots began, and obviously was an ambush style cowardly act, as Chief O'Hara put it, as the gunman was firing from a window, through the window, at the children inside. So outside here, you know, people are learning the bad news, as we all have officially, that 2 children have been killed, many others wounded, and outside it's really kind of eerily quiet, I would say, as people are shocked. People are showing up to see if there's anything that they can do. Yep, you got it. They're just extending the area, the crime scene, if you will, just to keep people from getting too close to the school itself as the investigation continues. Any questions you guys have, feel free to shoot them my way.
Lou, thank you for your reporting out there. Yeah, I think you bring up such a great point about the high velocity weapon and the type of damage that can do to a body. We just learned from HCMC, the 9 pediatric victims who were brought there between the ages of 6 and 14. So we think about the size of a 6-year-old and the damage a high velocity bullet from one of these rifles can do to that child. It is a credit to the emergency physicians at HCMC that they have been brought in. They were brought in critical, but at this point, everyone who was brought there is still alive. They are treating these children, 11 patients overall. And as Lou talked about, the chief calling this act cowardly, a man who pulled up to a church and fired through the windows at children inside praying.
I don't know if we still have Lou. I just wanted to kind of ask about the investigation process. We know the FBI there is on scene. Would they take over the investigation from here? How does that process work? If you can kind of take us behind the scenes of that.
That's a great question. It's best described as it'll be a multifaceted investigation. The federal authorities are the FBI and the ATF, and they are involved because it involves somebody illegally using a weapon, obviously. And so that part of the investigation will be figuring out where this gunman got that weapon, whether the gunman obtained it legally or not. Of course, he used it illegally, so that part is certain. They will handle mostly that part of the investigation, while it should remain a Minneapolis police investigation when it comes to the murder, the mass murder and attempted murders that occurred here at the church. And so multifaceted between Minneapolis police, the FBI and the ATF, and there's even the BCA crime lab van. The mobile crime lab is back there to help with evidence collection. And so, like I said in my first phone call with you guys, it's really an all hands on deck. I saw even a Minnetonka police officer, there's Richfield police officers, you name it, offering an all hands approach. The investigation itself, though, will most likely at this point remain with Minneapolis police with the help of ATF, the FBI, and the BCA.
And Lou, in his news conference, Chief O'Hara did say that there is a car on scene that they believe belonged to the gunman here, that they are searching. Have you been able to get eyes on that or seen the search of that car?
That's a great question, and no, I have not. The part where the shooting took place right now is the most well blocked off area for obvious reasons. If Gordon Severson is able to do a live hit with you, his crew over there with Mitchell Yale is the crew that's closest to that spot, so they would be ones to ask if they have eyes on that. One thing to note is that in a situation like this, they can get into a vehicle like that immediately to search because of exigent circumstances, emergent circumstances, and then they likely will get after they tow it away, a warrant to do a more comprehensive search of the vehicle. But the first thing they need to do is figure out if there are explosives or anything like that. And so I'm certain that's what the initial search of that vehicle consisted of. And then there'll be, more to be done after that, including whether there's any notes or anything left behind, additional weapons and so forth in the vehicle.
Lou, thank you for that insight, and thanks for your reporting out there. We're going to let you go now, continue to do some reporting at that area. This is a situation that's developing, although we certainly have gotten a lot of new information in about the last half hour. So, Lou, thank you. One thing I do want to share, we received an email from a viewer who was a witness, they say, and I'm sharing this because I think it highlights the bravery of some of the people involved here. And this person, his name is Sean Olson, said he came up on the school and saw that the first few police officers were just getting there. Before I knew it, I was just west of the entrance to the church doors. He saw the kids piled up on each other, crouching with their heads down, and teachers huddled over the top of them, putting their lives at risk, and clearly scared. Meanwhile, he saw cops running in with their guns drawn and going straight into the church. And I just wanted to share that because I think that witness account highlights the bravery of teachers who are tasked not only with teaching kids, but in this situation, putting their own lives at risk to protect them. And also with officers not knowing what the situation is at this point and running in.
Yeah, officers, obviously are the first responders. That's why we call them first responders, the first to respond to the scene. They don't know what they're running into, but they run into it anyway because that is what they do. And as far as the teachers, I mean, you send your kid to school and you expect them to come back to you, and your teacher is that line of defense, in a way of that. They're protecting their students. They're there to be there for their students, and it just shows how much they care for those students, how much they care for their well-being. To pile on top of them, to be that literal human shield for them, just shows the selflessness of our educators.
Absolutely, it does. And I think, we've been focusing on the children who were hurt. Of course, we know that 2 children now were killed, an 8 and a 10-year-old. There were 17 injuries overall. Most of them were children, 14 of them. But that means that there are also adults who are injured. And we do not know who they are. Were they teachers? Were they teachers who were also in that church praying with children to start their school year, potentially putting themselves in harm's way?
So just to recap here, it's 11:30 here on this Wednesday, and we are continuing to follow this breaking news, this mass shooting, this senseless shooting that happened just before 8:30 this morning, happened during Mass over at Ascension Catholic Church. This Mass was marking the first week of school. The shooter approaches the school from the side of the school, barricades a couple of the doors, and starts firing shots into the windows there during this Mass, this second day of school Mass. He brought a shotgun, a rifle, and a pistol with him. He used the rifle to shoot through the glass. An 8-year-old and a 10-year-old killed in the process here. They're all sitting in the pews, and their lives end in just an instant.
At the same time, 17 people injured, including 14 children. We know from HCMC that 7 of them were critical when they were brought in there. Pediatric patients between the ages of 6 and 14, all with gunshot wounds from a high-velocity weapon, that rifle that you mentioned. And you heard the chief and the mayor both talking about the community and the need to sort of wrap them in love and support after such a traumatic thing. Just a short while ago, Chris Rapsky talked on the phone with former state senator, Jeff Hayden. His kids went to school at this K-8 school years ago, but he still can describe a little bit the community there and how they're a family. Let's listen in.
My daughter went there from the 1st to the 8th grade in the 2000s. She's 24 now, almost 24. My son went there for middle school. So we have a lot of friends and family, or what we consider family, that they have lifelong bonds. We have some friends right now that don't live too far from there that are in front of the school. And what my daughter told me was that they have mass every Wednesday, and then this is the welcome mass that they have on Wednesday. So the school or the cathedral, the church would have been full of the community as well as all of the children. All of the children would go to mass, and this would be their welcome mass, but they did it every week. So, the only thing we know is what you guys, others have been reporting. Someone came in and started shooting, but the point of that, I guess, is that it could have easily, in a different time been my own children or my friends' children, because all of the kids from kindergarten to 8th grade would be in that mass. This thing touches you, man, in ways, and every time it happens, that same stuff just all floods you, like the same feeling floods you. So I'm not sure what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, but I just think that the amount of gun violence that's happening in this country and the availability, sounds like this person had a rifle. I don't know if it was an AR or what. I've worked on this stuff, since I got back in the community because of gun violence. I worked on it after my sister died. I've worked on it legislatively and professionally, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down.
You hear former State Senator Jeff Hayden talking about when his kids went there to Annunciation and the significance of that back-to-school welcome mass that they were experiencing this morning when a gunman started firing in through the windows at children in the pews.
It's supposed to be a moment of joy, a time of reunion after not seeing your friends for the entire summer. Everybody's in there to fellowship and to worship together and to sing together. And this is the very last thing you would ever expect on the second day of school. And as he mentioned, there's this feeling of helplessness. Where do you go from here? What do you do? This is something that keeps happening over and over in this country, and there's just this feeling of helplessness for so many people, especially parents that are sending their kids to school not knowing if they're going to make it back home.
Absolutely. It happens in communities across the country, all sorts of different types of school, big towns, small towns, now in the Tangletown neighborhood of Minneapolis at a Catholic elementary or a Catholic K-8 school there. We are continuing to follow this breaking news with reporters on the scene. We will be checking back with them in a short while. We do want to update you on the conditions of the people who were shot. We know that at least 7 of them were critical when brought in, 9 pediatric patients, 6 between the ages of 6 and 14, 2 adults. That was 11 patients, adds up to 11 patients brought to HCMC, another 6 at Children's Minnesota. Those were told non-critical injuries.
And you heard from the Dr. Wyatt that spoke there a few minutes ago. He was saying that this is the second mass shooting in the last 24 hours. It's enough to deal with one. We had a shooting yesterday where 6 people were shot in broad daylight, brought to the hospital. 1 person died. And now they're having to deal with this on top of that. It strains the resources. And, he kind of spoke to the emotion of it. I mean, as a doctor, you're seeing kids come in with these just horrific injuries, and you have to treat them, and you have to work to save their lives, and it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
And we are certainly thankful for their efforts. As he said, 11 patients brought in with gunshot wounds from a high-velocity weapon. All of those patients brought to HCMC are still alive.
Yes.
And so we are thankful to those doctors and nurses and staff there, as I'm sure these families are.
Still alive. Unfortunately, some of the wounds they have, those may never heal,
Mental,
which is great.
emotional,
Emotional, physical. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of that, our Jessica Hart has been at the school throughout this morning and has witnessed some of these reunifications. So emotional, so trying for these parents who have spent hours just waiting to be reunited with their kids. Jessica, what are you seeing now?
Lauren, we got pushed back about a block from where we were earlier this morning. So we were down there by 54th and Garfield. Police asked all of us to move back as they kind of expanded the perimeter of this scene. You can see they're still kind of blocking off all of the entrances to the school, but it's not as many first responder vehicles as we saw earlier this morning. About 3 FBI agents just walked right by us. I asked if they were kind of headed home for the day, and they simply said no. So from that reaction, I could tell that they're going to be here for a while. I also talked with a woman who lives just a few houses down. She was not home during the time of the shooting, but she tells me that her children were, and they heard everything. She says they don't go to school here, they go to Wyndham, and they start school next week. And what's really scaring her right now is just the motive. She wants to know, why would someone do this? Did they go to school here? Did they live nearby? I know those were questions that were asked at the press conference that we're still waiting and working to get an answer on. Now, right now, the scene over here is really quieted down quite a bit here. We haven't seen really any families walking this way in quite some time, as police have expanded the perimeter here. Now they're not letting anyone get in or out of this area, so they are letting vehicles leave. We are right next to a grocery store, Kowalski, so they're letting cars get out, but no one is allowed to come in. Police also keep walking up and down the streets here, just kind of patrolling the area. It doesn't look like they're searching for any evidence as they were this morning. We saw kind of canines walking around here. And something else too is that all the officers and law enforcement, they're walking in groups. We just saw kind of a couple of groups walk down the street. I haven't seen anyone really walking around this scene by themselves. Now we've seen Minneapolis Police, Park Police, Minneapolis Fire, ATF, FBI, Homeland. We did see someone with bomb squad earlier today as well, even though the police chief, Brian O'Hara, confirmed there were no explosives found on this scene here. It's still a very active scene, but it has quieted down quite a bit since that press conference wrapped up, but people are still patrolling the area. It looks like school officials have been coming in and out of the school building as well, but still 2 people at the front entrance. There's another police officer at a secondary entrance. So it's been very quiet over here. We haven't seen too much action. So as soon as we see something new or learn something a little bit different, we'll keep you updated. And actually, as I just kind of said that, I'll have to step out of the way here shortly. There's a Red Cross vehicle actually making its way down here to probably set up to help people who are in need. So I'm going to send it back to you.
All right, Jessica, thank you for your reporting there on the scene throughout the morning. Appreciate it. You know, we do have reporters all around that area. That includes our Gordon Severson, who was at that news conference with Mayor Fry and Chief O'Hara. He's on the side of the building, I believe, Gordon, closest to where this gunman opened fire through windows. And I'm curious what you can tell us about the investigation happening there, and if you have been able to see this vehicle that police are searching that the gunman supposedly left behind.
Yeah, I haven't been able to see anything at the church. We actually just did an interview just a second ago, just down the street here, that I wanted to share with you all. We spoke with a woman who is a nanny for a few kids, and she was actually driving to work this morning and just happened to be kind of at the wrong place at the wrong time, drove through this scene just after it had happened, and she kind of got roped into the scene and was kind of told that she has to kind of stay in this area, and her car is still there by the school. She actually, called her mom, and her mom is here with her, and just kind of dealing with this whole situation. And she was, obviously very, emotional, working with kids herself. She didn't quite know exactly what was going on when she got caught up in this scene and was told she couldn't leave for her own safety. And, during the interview, her mom shared just one of those heartbreaking moments with us, saying that she got the call just a couple, hour or so ago from her daughter saying, Mom, I want you to know I'm safe, but something terrible happened, and I'm stuck here, and I'm afraid. And she said that's the call that you just never want to receive as a parent, and she stayed on the line with her daughter, talking her through it. She talked, this nanny, this young woman, talked about seeing these parents running into the school, bringing their kids out, and just the emotional nature of that. And she said it just really took a toll on her, seeing so many parents going in one after the other, and those families reuniting after all of this that happened. And so she's, just a couple feet from us right now in the shade, just kind of processing everything. And I'm sure there's just hundreds of people that, didn't have kids that go to the school, go to this church, but are in the neighborhood or caught up in this. It's just amazing to think of how many people were affected by this, that, indirectly in other ways, and a lot of emotions here, a lot of people just trying to process what's going on. I'm sure a lot of parents watching this right now, getting their kids ready for school, trying to process all of this right now. And so it's just, really heavy being here at the scene, and just, just a few hundred feet away from us, knowing what happened and still figuring everything out and getting the details from police. I know all of us that are parents here at the station are also trying to figure this out as well.
Yeah. Gordon, thank you for sharing that. You talk about phone calls no one wants to get. Let's keep at the forefront the phone call or the in-person visit that two parents, two families got today. The family of an 8 and a 10-year-old who were killed in this shooting while sitting in the pews there. And Gordon, we will let you go, continuing to report on this from the scene. But you can't imagine. It is absolutely incomprehensible, the grief and the shock that they must be feeling right now, that they sent their kids off for the beginning of the school year. You know, these are parents who chose Annunciation School, and likely because they appreciated the tight-knit community, the church community, and their kids are sitting in the pews worshiping for the back-to-school mass, and a gunman comes and shoots through the window.
They probably thought it was a safe place. You know, it's a church building. It's a place that provides that comfort that maybe a public school wouldn't provide, and that's obviously not the case here this morning. And you wonder, you know, other parents tomorrow morning, when you wake your kids up and it's time for them to go to school, this is going to be in the back of your mind, no doubt, because these parents this morning had no idea they were going to wake up this morning and send their kids off to school, this 8-year-old and this 10-year-old, and they weren't going to come back home later this afternoon.
Absolutely. Now, to mention that there are families of other children now sitting at the hospital as they undergo surgeries and treatment for gunshot wounds. Just to bring everyone up to speed here, the gunman in this situation is dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Police believe at this point he was armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. At this point, they have no real indication of a motive or any connection to this school or the school community. They're doing searches trying to learn more about that. They do know he was in his early 20s and he does not have an extensive criminal history. So this investigation is still in its very early phases. So as you know, the community wraps around these families, as the hospitals and the medical professionals work on healing these children's bodies, and the three adults who were wounded, healing their bodies. The police investigation is just now beginning to piece together the tragedy that happened this morning at Annunciation Church and School.
We heard from Mayor Fry during that press conference. We heard from Chief O'Hara. He gave all the details. We heard from Mayor Fry to begin the press conference, and I think emotional is safe to say. I think he was angry. We'll let you hear that and hear what he had to say about the situation.
There are no words that can capture the horror and the evil of this unspeakable act. Children are dead. There are families that have a deceased child. You cannot put into words the gravity, the tragedy, or the absolute pain of this situation. We are a Minneapolis family. But to everybody out there, do not think of these as just somebody else's kids. Those families are suffering immense pain right now. Think of this as if it were your own. Every one of us needs to be wrapping our arms around these families, giving them every ounce that we can muster. These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance.
I've rarely seen him that emotional. I've been here for about 3 years and seen many press conferences and many statements from him, but you could see just how much this tragedy today was just getting to him. And he talked about how these kids were literally praying. We talk about thoughts and prayers. These kids were literally praying when this happened.
Yeah, absolutely, making that point. And it's not just emotion, it's anger. I mean, the fact that this happened in his community, two Minneapolis families, And I think that's the feeling so many of us have. You see these situations and people want to know the motive, want to know the why, when in fact there is no rational good reason for this. It's evil. It is an act that should never happen. And Chief O'Hara touched on that as well, talking about this as a cowardly act, as an act of evil. Let's hear what he had to